They didn't yell. They didn't threaten. They didn't even look angry. But somehow, you walked away feeling like you did something wrong. That's not a coincidence. That's the final move of a collapsing narcissist. See, the moment they realize they can't control you anymore. When your strength, silence, or sanity becomes immune to their charm, something dark wakes up. They shift from seduction to sabotage. And their last trick? It's not what you think. It's not louder, it's quieter, more desperate, more calculated. And it's designed to make you question your truth, your worth, and even your memory. In this video, we're going to expose that final manipulation through the lens of Carl Jung's psychology, shadow theory, and real-life emotional warfare. You'll understand why narcissists fall apart when they see strength. You'll learn how their collapse becomes your turning point. And most importantly, you'll walk away with clarity. Clarity that heals, not hurts. Watch until the end, because the power they tried to take, you're about to take it back. You know that person who always seems so confident, borderline invincible? The one who walks into a room and dominates with charm, certainty, and just the right amount of calculated charm? Here's what no one tells you. That strength is hollow. Carl Jung would have called it a mask, an ego-driven illusion meant to cover something profoundly fragile underneath. See, narcissists aren't strong. They're armored. And armor isn't built for display, it's built for survival. What looks like power is often a desperate bid to not be seen too deeply. Because if you look too close, you'll find the exact thing they're terrified of showing: insecurity, fear, and a fractured self they've spent their lives denying. Jung's concept of the persona helps us decode this. The narcissist persona is meticulously designed to be admired. They need it like oxygen. But what happens when you, through strength, clarity, or emotional independence, don't feed it? You become dangerous. You mirror their emptiness without reacting to it. And here's the paradox: they're drawn to your strength and repulsed by it at the same time. It pokes at the shadow they've hidden so well. Your self-assurance is not just a threat, it's a mirror they cannot bear to look into. And so, the games begin. What looked like affection becomes subtle ridicule. What used to be admiration turns cold and dismissive. But here's what you must understand: they're not reacting to you. They're reacting to the threat your stability poses to their constructed identity. This is when the narcissist moves from charming manipulator to emotional saboteur. Not because you did anything wrong, but because you did something right. You didn't flinch. But what happens when they realize you're not playing along? That their control is slipping? Well, that's when their most dangerous tactic emerges, and it's one that many people don't see coming. There's a moment, quiet but seismic, when a narcissist sees you not as prey, not as a pawn, but as a problem. That moment happens when your strength no longer entertains their fantasy. Maybe you set a boundary. Maybe you stopped reacting. Maybe you just grew. And suddenly, something shifts. Their carefully built image begins to fracture. Because to a narcissist, your independence doesn't just challenge them. It destabilizes the very story they've told themselves about who they are. Carl Jung warned us, when someone rejects their own shadow, they inevitably project it onto others. So when a narcissist sees your confidence, your self-trust, your refusal to beg for love, they don't just feel threatened, they feel exposed. Your emotional self-sufficiency reflects back everything they've spent years avoiding. You didn't mean to do it, but you became the crack in their armor. And their ego, built like glass, doesn't bend. It shatters. This is why narcissists react so explosively when you stop playing your assigned role. What they call love was often just control wrapped in flattery. Once that fails, the narrative flips. You'll hear things like, "You've changed," or "You're selfish now." That's projection in action. They're trying to collapse your identity to protect theirs. And they'll do it with charm, guilt, or rage, whatever seems most effective. But make no mistake, your strength didn't break them. It revealed they were already broken. And yet, they're not done. Not yet. Because even as their grip loosens, narcissists don't go quietly. When power begins to slip through their fingers, they reach for their most cunning tool. The one final trick that's more deceptive than rage, more seductive than charm, and far more dangerous than it looks. At first, it felt like a dream. Compliments flowed. Attention never wavered. You were the center of their universe, and they made sure you knew it. That early phase? It wasn't love. It was a strategy. Psychologists call it love bombing, but Carl Jung might have seen it differently. A projection of their idealized self onto you. You weren't being seen. You were being used to prop up a fragile ego. And once your strength began to outshine their illusion, the game changed, drastically. Suddenly, praise turns to criticism. but so subtly you almost miss it. A backhanded compliment here, a joke at your expense there. They frame it as honesty or even concern. I just want what's best for you. But underneath it all is a punishment for not being who they needed you to be. This is the shift from idealization to devaluation. It marks the beginning of a psychological Cold War. One where silence becomes a weapon, affection is withheld, and your confidence becomes the battleground. And here's the cruel twist. The stronger you remain, the colder they become. They want you to question yourself, to chase the approval they once gave so freely. It's not because they hate you, it's because your resilience humiliates them. Every moment you don't collapse is a reminder that they never really had control. So they turn to covert tactics, passive aggression, ghosting, emotional withdrawal. It's manipulation with a smile, sabotage wrapped in stillness. You might start wondering if you're imagining things. That's not an accident. That's the setup, because next comes their most sophisticated move. A tactic so disarming, so confusing, that even the most grounded people have fallen for it. Here it is, the last card in their deck. When charm fails and intimidation doesn't work, the narcissist pivots to their most deceptive move, becoming the victim. This isn't just manipulation, it's performance art. Suddenly, they're wounded, misunderstood, betrayed. They act like your boundaries are cruelty, your silence is abuse, your independence is abandonment. And if you're empathetic, and chances are, you are, that script hits hard, because now, you're the one who feels guilty for growing stronger. Carl Jung believed that people project their unowned suffering onto others. Narcissists do this masterfully. Instead of confronting their own pain, they externalize it. And if you're close, you become the perfect screen. They'll cry, they'll collapse, they'll say things like, I just can't believe you do this to me. And the dangerous part? They often believe it themselves. The act isn't always fake. It's self-deception wrapped in emotional theater. And it's meant to pull you back into the web. The moment you begin to feel responsible for their feelings is the moment you start surrendering your power. That's the point. It's a reversal. You're now trying to make them feel better. Suddenly, your clarity becomes cruelty. Your growth becomes betrayal. And in trying to be fair or keep the peace, you shrink yourself again, just to make the storm stop. But it never really does it? Because the storm isn't about the weather, it's about control. And yet, this isn't the end of their psychological warfare. The victim act is powerful, but it needs something even more potent to work fully. It needs confusion, doubt, the kind that creeps in slowly, making you question not just what's happening, but your very grip on reality itself. You're sure of what you saw. You remember the tone, the words, the moment, but somehow, they don't. Or at least, they say they don't. That never happened. You're being too sensitive. You always twist things. Welcome to the most disorienting trick in a narcissist's arsenal: gaslighting. It's not just lying, it's engineered confusion. And its goal is simple: make you doubt your reality so completely that you start relying on theirs instead. Carl Jung believed that the psyche craves order, but when your reality is constantly invalidated, your mind scrambles to create coherence, even if that means accepting distortion as truth. That's how gaslighting works. It wears you down slowly. At first, you defend yourself. Then you question yourself. Eventually, you surrender, not out of weakness, but out of exhaustion. It's psychological erosion disguised as disagreement. And it can happen to anyone. The brilliance and the cruelty of gaslighting is how normal it can look from the outside. No shouting. No overt abuse. Just a slow rewriting of shared history. The narcissist shifts timelines, rephrases conversations, reframes events. And all the while, they insist they're the calm one, the rational one, the victim of your emotional instability. It's enough to make anyone feel crazy. And that's the point. If you're too confused to trust your instincts, you're easier to control. But even gaslighting has a tell. Deep down, there's a part of you that knows. That whisper of clarity, however faint, still speaks. And if you follow it, if you choose to trust it, it will lead you to something the narcissist can't touch, a perspective rooted in truth. But to get there, you'll have to face the part of them they've spent a lifetime hiding, and the part of you they've tried to bury. Carl Jung once said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." But when it comes to narcissists, that idea flips. Because they aren't trying to understand themselves, they're trying to unload themselves onto you. This is projection, a psychological defense where someone takes the parts of themselves they refuse to see, the fear, the rage, the shame, and attributes them to someone else. And if you're the nearest target, you'll end up carrying their emotional baggage as if it were your own. Here's where it gets tricky. Projections are persuasive. When someone says you're selfish, unstable, manipulative, often enough, you start wondering if maybe they're right. But what if those accusations were never about you? What if they were distorted reflections of the narcissist's own disowned traits? Jung called this the shadow, the dark side of the psyche we all have but rarely confront. Narcissists don't just avoid theirs, they weaponize it. The more aware and grounded you are, the more violently that shadow reacts. Your emotional maturity shines a spotlight on everything they repress, and that light isn't welcome. So they project harder, pushing their darkness onto you, hoping you'll either absorb it or collapse under its weight. It's a psychic game of hot potato, and your sanity is what's at stake. But recognizing projection for what it is, that's the first step in breaking the spell. You can't fight projection with logic. You can't debate it into submission. What you can do is stay rooted in your own truth. Know what's yours and what isn't, because once you see the game, you stop playing it. And when you stop playing, you start building something else, something stronger, quieter, untouchable. But to get there, you'll need more than insight. You'll need emotional armor. You can't control when the storm hits, but you can control what you become when it does. When you're dealing with a narcissist, it's not just about what they say or do. It's about how they make you feel. The trap isn't always in the words, it's in the reactivity. They thrive on emotional chaos. If they can make you overreact, explain yourself, or spiral into self-doubt, they've won. That's why your greatest weapon isn't revenge or confrontation, it's emotional stillness. Carl Jung taught that wholeness comes from integrating the parts of ourselves we've ignored. That includes the calm, steady self beneath the noise. Stillness is not passivity, it's clarity. It's knowing that you don't have to answer every provocation or fix every distortion. When you cultivate that quiet inner power, the narcissist's tactics begin to lose their grip. They scream into silence and hear nothing back. They poke and get no wound. And that's when they realize they can't reach you anymore. Building this stillness takes practice. It means sitting with uncomfortable feelings without reacting to them. It means recognizing the difference between guilt and manipulation. It means learning to delay your response by a breath, a moment, a day until you're acting from strength, not defense. It's not always easy, but it's how you reclaim your agency. It's how you stop dancing to music you never chose. And as you become more centered, more unshakable, something unexpected happens. The narcissist begins to unravel, not because you fought them, but because you refuse to be baited. That's the real collapse. But you're not done yet, because once you've stopped reacting, it's time to start releasing. There's a moment, after the anger fades and the confusion settles, when clarity steps in. And with it comes a choice. Do you seek justice or freedom? Many who break free from narcissistic abuse fantasize about revenge. It's understandable. You want them to feel what they made you feel. But here's the truth. That desire keeps you tethered. Revenge is just another form of emotional debt. And you don't owe them another second of your life. Carl Jung believed that healing isn't about destroying the enemy, it's about transcending them. The narcissist wants you reactive, bitter, obsessed. Because as long as you're emotionally entangled, even in hatred, they still own real estate in your mind. True freedom comes not from proving your worth or exposing their lies. It comes from choosing to live in a reality they no longer shape. That's power. That's sovereignty. Freedom is found in small, radical acts. Ignoring the bait, cutting off contact, saying no without apology. It's deleting the message without reading it, removing the memory from the pedestal you built for it. And it's looking in the mirror and realizing, you never needed to be enough for someone who was never full. Their approval was never the prize. Your peace was, and you can have it. Not by fighting harder, but by walking away softer. But here's what they won't tell you. Walking away isn't the end. It's the beginning. Because once you stop needing them to break, you realize something far more important. You never needed them to begin with. And yet, there's one final chapter in this story. One last moment that truly defines the end of their power over you. Silence is a strange thing. When used with intention, it becomes a shield one that disarms manipulation, diffuses drama, and protects your energy. But here's what few realize, it also sends a message. A loud one. When you stop reacting to the narcissist's provocations, games, or pleas, something unnerving happens on their end. They're met with a void, a mirror they can't manipulate, and in that stillness, they begin to spiral. You see, narcissists expect noise. They expect anger, tears, defenses. Your silence? It disrupts the pattern. It forces them to sit with their own emptiness, without the distraction of your energy to feed on. And that is terrifying, for them. Jung understood this phenomenon well. when we are no longer able to project, we are confronted with the self. And for someone who's built their entire identity on avoiding that confrontation, your silence becomes a kind of psychological exile. They may retaliate. They may try to re-enter your life with apologies, stories, even fake self-awareness, but it's not real healing, it's bait. It's the echo of their ego refusing to die quietly. The silence you give them is not just absence, it's a boundary. And that boundary, when firm and unshaken, dismantles the illusion they worked so hard to build. Because the truth is, you were never the problem. You were the mirror. And now that it's gone, they're left with only the shadow. And here's the part they never expect. You don't hate them. You don't need to. Because when you reach this stage, where silence is not punishment, but peace, you've already won. You've walked through fire, refused to become ashes, and emerged as someone they can no longer touch. So now the question is, what do you build from here? You didn't defeat the narcissist by outsmarting them. You didn't have to. You won by not needing the game at all. Carl Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. But now you see the pattern. You see the projection, the manipulation, the final trick. And more than that, you see yourself. Not as broken, or reactive, or too much, but as whole. So now I leave you with a challenge. What will you do with this clarity? Will you return to the old cycles, or build a new story? One that doesn't require someone else's collapse to rise? Let me know in the comments, what part of this message hit the deepest? And if you want more insights like this, rooted in timeless philosophy, raw psychology, and real power, subscribe to the channel. We've got more truths coming, but only if you're ready to hear them.